Okay, welcome to my presentation entitled as Turkish Sports Marketing, a Visit to Current Trends. In this presentation, I'll in fact made a mistake by while titling the presentation because it must be a summary of Turkish sports marketing in the modern trends. So it needs to be in fact Turkish sports marketing in a nutshell. So it will be so hard to, give all the details about the sports marketing in general, and while focusing on some territorial part in a world would be so difficult and would be extending the time of presentation so much. So therefore, I will be skipping the boring part and will be focusing on the fun part of sports marketing. And if you're not familiar with the term, I'm sure that you'll learn a lot of stuff regarding the marketing of sports. So our first slide, let me check if someone else is coming. Sorry. Okay. Our first slide is entitled as discussing the sport because it must be very important for everybody to learn the epistemological root of a word so that it would define you the what is that term and what's not meant by that term. So therefore it needs to be defined very conceptually and comprehensively. An activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment is the Oxford English Dictionary definition of sports. But full comprehension of concepts comes short if society do not practice the terms defined by that word in their own culture. So having said that, it is believed that these cultures are meant to be left behind by their competitors. It's also the same case for the sports. The countries, the nations who have, not put sport on their main agenda, but just use it to create some, political influence or some fun for the nation, they are left behind by their competitors, as we see today. The economic power, geographical availability, climate, population may not withstand against another competitor that justifies its success, that is ingrained into their own culture. So, in order to understand the main definition of sport, just magical definition of sports, it's really hard, and I don't think that I have a definition that I can give right now for you to fully comprehend what sport meant. But I try to, decrease the possibilities or professions that use the word sport regarding to their own liking. I am sure that you don't know about this, but in the 70s, there was some academical discussion, a real harsh discussion about the definition of the term between McBride and Morgan. While this academic discussion continues, the definition of sport, of course, changed what they were discussing about. With the technological advances, with the downfall of the two polarized world and the increase in globalization, which is a very cliche and classic term, but yes, after the maximization of globalization resources around the globe, the definition of sport changed regarding the people who are making the sport, who are governing the sport, and who are making money through the sports. In my opinion, Ahmet Talimciler, who was a professor in the Aegean University, was amongst the greatest minds in Turkey regarding sport and sports sociology. So he categorized the definition of sports in order for you to better understand. In sports, rules are standardized, which I mean the rules of the game do not differ from one game to another. Wherever it's played, the rules are standardized. So basically, if you are, let's say you are playing handball, whether you are playing handball in Turkey or in England, it's basically the same. The rules are the same. Ruling bodies follow the implementation practices. Organizational and technical dimension of the activity is important. Set of skills are formalized, which is interconnected with the first rule. Sporting activities are for personal gratification and exterior rewards. By personal gratification, Mr. Talimciler means that the personal awards, like an athlete is selected like the most valuable player, or for example, in tennis, the Grand Slam champion is getting a personal gratification. And exterior rewards can be money, cups, you know, extra financial benefits like sponsorship for athletes, so on and so forth. Sorry, I'll just a quick check if someone else is here. No, all right. Another definition of sports is follows as a political tool, especially in fact, this picture on the left side, what you see on the left side is Olympic photo from Tommy Smith and John Carlos, who were Asian, African-American athletes who have won the Olympic gold medal in 1968 Summer Olympics. And while in the American society there was a black movement, like today, was on the rise, and against slavery and their rights on the American soil, these athletes have demonstrate their reaction to the slavery with that move. The third athlete, the white athlete, who was an Australian runner, who didn't raise his fist, have lost his career. Another political reflection of sports can be considered as the Eastern Bloc activities after the World War II. You know, the communist bloc on the Eastern Europe have always, and fundamentally, in fact, using sport as a tool of political engineering, societal engineering. The governing parties, most of them are the same, the Communist Party regarding that country, getting orders from Russia. They were always using their own teams to engineer the society and, you know, fix the games and stuff, to showcase the communist rule is working. Okay, these are the two other pictures here. One of them is Miri. I'm sure that some of you might know Miri. Sorry. Just a second. Yeah. Meri Demirel is a Turkish football player who is playing for Juventus in Italy. And in a game in 2018 or 19, I'm not sure, before the COVID crisis, he gave the classical military gesture after a goal is scored by Turkish national team. And he was demonstrated his reaction towards the terrorist activities in Turkey. He created a huge discussion, both in social media and the national Italian media, that he was, you know, doing something against the UEFA rules. But in fact, he was just showcasing his own reaction to the things happening in his own country. And on the right side of the slide, you see the Lakers players who are bending the knee. This is, of course, happened last year in the finals, I guess, when the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, was on the rise in the United States, so that the NBA players who are making a lot of money, huge money, they were trying to educate, or trying to show something to the American society that Black Lives Matters, and the black athletes are really caring for it. So that sport always have been a factor of societal influence. Let's see the other side of things, how business people see sport. By business people, I don't mean the athletes. In fact, not the athletes who are already playing the game. I'm not talking about them, but the people who owns the team, who are on the marketing departments, head of the marketing departments in the clubs, who are making sponsorship deals, the agents, those kind of people see sport like this. The handsome guy on the right side is the father of the modern Olympics, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, and he defines the sport as the most frequently used, to him, the most frequently used definition of the sport in modern literature. He gave it. He described the sport an intensive muscular activity that relies heavily on the praxis, desire, and even journey towards facing dangers. De Coubertin and de Novacal. So those guys meant that, as they are a gentleman from a 19th century, born and raised in 19th century, and carry their experience to the 20th century, they see that sport is a challenge of mankind against nature or other hard obstacles, or other challenging things. So regarding to them, sports needs to be, sometimes might be, facing dangers. So it needs to be huge physical activity. But this, of course, changed after this. In fact, after de Coubertin have resurrected the Olympics, whole perspective towards sports have changed around the globe. To business people, sports is an activity of leisure time. Sports is an activity that strengthens the togetherness in the individual. Sport brings identity. Sport develops ingenuity. Sport encourages the ambition to win, therefore increases systematic working discipline. As you can see, the business people, the business side of things is considering sport as a rewarding activity, both for individual and the company, because they think that while people making sports, they are going to have fun, but it will also increase their systematic working discipline. Sport make individuals to worship athletes who demonstrates ultimate muscular activity. This point of view comes directly from the ancient Greek, of course the ancient Roman, and after that Romans. The gladiator, the gladiators in the Roman Empire was just like the celebrity of athletes today, athlete celebrities today. So therefore, the other people, the regular people like us, were worshiping. Worship is a strong word, but at least they were cherish. They were looking very fondly to the gladiators in the area. So the Coubertin carried that mindset to the modern world, which we can see today, especially after David Beckham. We just seen that same thing is happening. Sport is a safety valve that mollifies the aggression, which you can easily say that when people go to games, when they spend money to watch their team, they mollify their aggression. Sport is a sociological factor that provides healthy socialization. Sport is interbedded with the politics, which is 100% correct. No country in the world can claim that they are not interbedded with the politics. This will be a real funny argument for that nation. And from the Marxist perspective, in the Marxist economy, sport is an opiate for masses. I am sure that you heard this sentence for football, especially about from people who are just, you know, a modern liberal intellectuals. They disgrace people who are watching football as they cannot understand the societal factors that the sport offering. So they disgrace people who are going to games by saying that football is the opiate for masses. And sport is a rewarding competition and marketable after 1970s. So as we are living in Turkey, I just wanted to give some short historical definition about the sports in Asia Minor. Asia Minor is the Western name for Anatolia. So as I am sure that you already know, before the Ottoman imperial period, the societal role of the sports in Asia Minor depends heavily on the ancient Roman and Greek culture. So what we can say that there are lots of coliseums, one of them you can see in Bergamo, lots of horse racing, and some other sport activities which I am not very sure of, but the trend continues with the Byzantines until the Turkic and Mughal tribes from Transaxonia. Transaxonia can be understood as the in Turkish it's Maveri Nehir, or Orta Asya, Middle Asia, and modern day in Iran. There were some Turkic and Mughal tribes who were rushing to Anatolia, Asia Minor, and after they decided to settle in the Asia Minor, the whole society have changed. So therefore, the activities that people, the middle-aged people have done, also shifted towards some other activities. As you might guess, bowery, wrestling, any activity with the horse considered as the sports, but do not confuse it with the Byzantine horse racing. Turkic tribes, Turks or Mongols or the Transaxonian tribes have using horses as their, as their companion, so that they were doing sports together with the horse. It's javelin throwing, bowery on horse, those kind of activities. After the imperial period, after the Ottomans, it was expected from Ottoman sultans to demonstrate their skills on those Turkic and Mughal sport activities. There was a good example. I was lucky enough to see this while I'm researching. 8 Albanian shields that Murat II, pierced with javelin throw, was hanged in the walls of Castle Beg, as well as 12 chainmail sent to Cairo, who he pierced through arrows. This means the Murat II, was showcasing his skills on javelin throwing and bowery through the empire, in order to use this as an important aspect of his rule over the nation. Of course, wrestling still continues today, is a very important sport within the Ottoman context. In fact, after the 18th century and the 19th century, Sultans Abdulaziz and Abdulhamid have really invested on the development of wrestling in the Asia Minor, especially in Constantinople, in Istanbul, in the capital. Therefore, then you know the rest, right? The Ottoman Empire have fallen, the new republic have been established, and the old institutions that have been started to make something within the empire have transferred directly to the republic. One of them was, of course, Galatasaray Football Club and the Mektebi Sultani, which is Lisedo Galatasaray. And in Galatasaray Lisesi, I'll say the original name, Galatasaray Lisesi is the first establishment that offered an organized football team in Turkey. But before Galatasaray Football Club, there were Black Stockings who were established in Istanbul. They were all Muslim members, but when the Axis force have invaded the Istanbul and stopped the activities of Muslim members to, you know, come together, more than 3-4 people. They have alerted the Ottoman Sultan, which was in that time nothing more than a puppet. So he stopped the club's games and disbanded its members. So our first football club, Black Stockings, have lost its sport chance with the command of an Ottoman Sultan. Today, Turkey is one of the biggest sport economies around the globe, but not as much as we think we are. We are only amongst the top 10 in Europe, and we can only say this for our football, not for any other sports, maybe a little bit for basketball and the other amateur branches, but it will be foolish to, you know, claim that Turkey is amongst the important sporting nations around the globe right now. As you already probably know, most popular one is football. Then it's followed by basketball, volleyball, which Turkey is particularly successful in women volleyball, handball, track and field, and of course, ancestral wrestling. So what is sports marketing is our main topic today. Sports marketing is same as conventional marketing, but as you can see, it also needs to be considered very, very differently and very, very comprehensively, because football, especially football fans, the main target of sports marketing in Turkey, at least, are, how can I say politely, are real crazy in here. This, I'm a Galatasaray fan, but this fan-made painting, don't know the English word for it. The fan-made painting has been, I think, has been done in like 2008 or 2007 when Fenerbahçe was against and either Olympiacos or Panathinaikos, the Greek teams. It suggests that the competition in the field is really not the case. In fact, people are, in their mind, people are playing another game with their ancient enemy Greeks. The same thing happens when you go to Greece for a football game. The Olympiacos fans do the same thing. So it gives us an idea about the people we are dealing with right now. Our target market is different than people who are often use the same brand, which we can say they are loyal to that brand. but the football fans are totally different. So therefore, sports marketing needs to be different. As I mentioned, the critical term is fan. The fan versus spectator is a very important discrimination. So in order to understand the idea of sports marketing, you need to understand the difference between fan and a spectator. Basically, spectator is a kind of a person who just goes to a game, enjoys the game, and let's say about a football game, and after the 90 minutes ends, he just goes, he's home, do what he does in the routine flow of the day, and never thinks of the game. Just enjoy it and spend it, and it's over. But the fan carries that emotion to his next 2-3 days. Especially if you lose a derby game against a rival, and when you go to your workplace in that Monday morning, you will be, if you win, you will have all kind of confidence and all kind of bragging rights when you are conversating with your employees or your people who are colleagues. But if you lose that game, you know what's going to happen when you go to workplace. So basically, the fan lives, the spectator spends. So as a sports marketer, we need to be converting spectators to fans. The best part of sports marketing is you already have an established fandom base. There must be, if you're not, a municipality club or something, if you were established like 50 years ago, I am sure that you're going to have some fans. So those fans are already on your pocket. So what you're going to have to do is converting spectators, the people who are just spending the game, to fans. Apart from classical marketing mix, in sports marketing, we are talking about 5 important aspects. The first one of them is subjectivity and intangibility. I want you to imagine a football stadium full of, let's say, 50,000 people. You cannot expect the satisfaction level of these 50,000 people to be just the same, just like the next guys. They can't be getting the same satisfaction from the game on the field equally. It cannot be happening. So this is the subjectivity of the sports marketing. You need to be thinking individually of those 50,000 people while trying to sustain the general satisfaction. Okay? On the other hand, when the game over, they don't give you a book or a notebook or a pen or I don't know, a drink to drink, a chair. You go home empty-handed. You don't have anything other than the game that was just played on the field. So we cannot claim that sports is a tangible thing, maybe in our minds, but in the real perspective, in the real positive science, the sport is an intangible good. So you just consume it while you are on it. The second one is atonement and unpredictability. This is Los Galacticos, Real Madrid's motto after the millennial period have begun. They were attracting lots of star players to play for Madrid, and therefore they are started to be called Los Galacticos, like the stars in the galaxy. But they don't win a thing other than Spanish league. They don't win a Champions Cup. They don't win an international. They didn't win an international field. So even though they have spent huge money on huge superstars for that time, at least, they couldn't get the success they wanted. So support have always giving chance to underdog to win. Therefore, it creates unpredictability for the marketer as well as the consumer. People are enjoying that they are not sure what's going to happen. That's very important. And also, weather conditions, the field condition, environmental aspects, referees, player motivation are always are factors that determines the success. In marketing side of things, think that you created the huge, awesome, great marketing plan for the Sunday's game. Everything goes great. The game starts, your star player gets injured in the 5th minute, then you concede a goal, then you concede another goal. At the end of the game, you lost, let's say, 0-4. And as a marketer of the club, all you did have gone wrong, right? And nothing in here that you can control. Third one is the perishability, directly related with the intangibility. The core product, the watching the game, is perishable. You cannot save it, you cannot stock it, you cannot collect it, or you cannot gift the watching experience to someone, right? So it's perishable. Focus and control area. I put LeBron James here because he's one of the greatest examples of what I'm about to say. Similar with the atonement and unpredictability, in sports marketing, it's so easy to lose the control over your team as a marketer if someone in that team exceeds the image of the club itself. While LeBron was playing for Cleveland, he was bigger than Cleveland. So Cleveland Cavaliers was not selling the Cleveland Cavaliers jerseys or, you know, Cavaliers merchandise. They were selling because LeBron James is there. So we can say that the marketer of the Cleveland Cavaliers that time was not directly controlling on its marketing activities. He was just focusing on some point and doing the best of what he could, because the star player have already gone a bigger brand, gonna become a bigger brand than the club itself. Lastly, it's psychological attachment and identification, which is in fact the main scope of what I am studying on sports marketing. This is a picture from 2013 before the Schalke game. There were some people who were arrested by German police to dig a hole before the stadium to go inside to see Galatasaray. It's, you know, amazingly awkward, especially for Germans to comprehend, I guess, that some people are digging tunnels to go to a game. So we can always say that sport fans are not just people who are spending money or mindlessly following their team around the globe, but in fact they are committed and they identify their individual self with the team. They are affected by the results, trophies that they see or they lost day by day. I mean their team And they carry these things throughout their lives. They remember the game in 1987, which was just, you know, they just lost because the referee gave a very bad decision. They remember the referee, they remember the position, they remember the players who were in that time was on the field. So they carry and they convey this information to their next generation. So it's kind of like culture transformation, tribal transformation to sustain and maintain the survival of the idea that is identified with that individual and derived from that team. So I will expand this idea a little bit later. I'll skip those parts a little bit fast. Brand loyalty is the very classical term in marketing. It was studied since 1964. The greatest article on that topic is Day's 1969 article. If you are interested with the brand loyalty, you need to read that article. In fact, the idea is consumers committed to a brand by repeatedly purchasing, expanding its brand area of accession by word of mouth or other means of advertising. So I spend money for that brand. I liked it. Now I am referring it to my colleagues, to my peers, to people who are around me. And I need to get a certain level of satisfaction, and I need to recommend the product. That's how I can see myself identified with the idea. Okay. The important part of sports marketing is here, the psychological commitment in which I'm working on. Psychological commitment is something like your connection with your flag, with your nation, with your religion. I am giving those examples in order for you to understand the magnitude of being a fan for a club. You need to be identified itself with you. You can try this with people who you think are very good fans. Think of them, ask them to think the values of, let's say, Beşiktaş Football Club or Beşiktaş Sports Club, to a Beşiktaş fan. And then you ask him what he or she cherish or what he or she, acknowledge in their own personal life. 8 times of 10, you're going to see that the people's idea of the Beşiktaş image is very similar to his virtues or characteristics in his personal life. You're going to see that they are similar, they are close to each other. So first of all, to become a fan, you need to identify yourself with the team. Then allegiance. Allegiance is something like what I aforementioned, your commitment to your religion, to your flag, to your nation, your wife. It's kind of like being loyal and not discussing what would happen if you, born in a different country or support a different team or born under a different flag. Most of the time, people wouldn't want to be raised in a different country than their home, right? You just, you might sometimes envy the Western civilization or Eastern civilization, whatever your tastes are, but most of the time, people love their country. So it's kind of similar with it. you need to be committed to your football club, or your sport club. And the third one is knowledge, which was very interesting for Turkey, because in other nations, first knowledge happens, then allegiance and identification and allegiance. But in Turkey, what we see while I was doing my master's degree, we have seen that knowledge is the third factor. So people are okay to support the team, to identify themselves with the team, just with the information they get from their parents. They respect their father or grandfather, let's say, who was a Galatasaray fan, and he influences them to become a Galatasaray fan. And you don't need to learn anything about Galatasaray, now you are a Galatasaray fan. In other countries, this is a little bit different. People are more, mindful of what they are supporting. But here, I think it's going to change in a couple of years. But right now, the knowledge is the third factor happening or surfacing when you start to support a club. By knowledge, we mean the history of that club, what that club offers, the current status and the previous status of the club, forecasting about the direction that club is going, knowing things about the team that you support creates your knowledge. So these are very important for psychological committed fan, and a sports marketer needs to think the establishment of identification, allegiance, and knowledge within their target market. If you cannot, establish those three ideas in a spectator, it's impossible for you to convert it to become a fan. So I will be continuing with the social identity theory, which is very important for you to understand, for everyone to understand why do we need identification. I will not go into details of social identity theory, but it covers the social psychological aspects of individuals' memberships and processes within a group, as well as relationships within the group itself. So each of us, each individual, have roles. Me, for example, with my friends, I am someone else. With school, I am someone else. While I'm doing another job, I am someone else. In fact, all those identities are me, but my role on those events are always different. So I identify myself with the role I am given to in that particular time of day. So there are no exceptions in the world about social identity theory. Every individual has different roles. So when you go back to the identification part, we identify themselves regarding our roles to the closest group, and our role in that group is derived from our individual self. So in order for you, if there are anyone who are interested in the consumer marketing or sports marketing or marketing sociology, you surely need to learn about social identity theory, which is very important, fundamental for people who are interested to work in societal field. So I will be closing my presentation in a short time, but in that 5 or 6 minutes, I like to talk about the future of Turkish sports, and then goes to question and and then go to question and answers. It's a very bad image, sorry for it. But you can see the sponsorship revenues of all the clubs in the Europe's 5 most powerful league. These are the title winners in the previous years. Data is formulated in 2018, and we can see that while Paris Saint-Germain have generated 94.1 million euros in that year from sponsorship revenues, the champion of Turkish league in that time, Galatasaray, have only just produced approximately 25 million euros. In fact, if you just convert the currency to today's time, it will merely make 18 million or something, probably, with today's currency. Yeah, you can see easily that we are in a very bad shape, especially on financial field. I just gave this data because we are putting themselves, the Turkish club, to a position that we can compete with these giants, in economic giants. Let me rephrase it, the economic giants. But as you can see, we can't, at least right now. So this is very important for every sport marketer in Turkey to consider, because we are, to my opinion, in fact, we are very unsuccessful on selecting what we are competing for. What I'm saying is going to be supported by financial fair play, aka also known as FFP. FFP is the trouble that is hanging like a sword around the heads of our biggest Turkish football clubs. Galatasaray have suffered like 3-4 years from financial fair play. They couldn't buy any player without selling a player, and their agreement will end at the end of this year, but it will start for other clubs. As far as I know, from the champions of Turkish Super League, only Başakşehir are in comply with the financial fair play regulations. Financial fair play regulations, for those who don't know, are a set of rules generated by the UEFA in order to regulate the huge spending spree of football clubs. Manchester United is also suffering from FFP, but as their fundamentals are so rooted and so strong, the logical decisions have been made for them in the previous years, they are just going to overcome this period like a butter in the knife. But for us, it's really hard, and the Turkish clubs are already in debt without the financial fair play regulations. They have huge debts to banks. I am sure that you remember from the news that there are some headlines says the new agreement with the bank is going to relieve blah blah club. They have made a new agreement with blah blah bank. We are continuously making agreements with banks to pay our debts, but as we are not generating any income, and of course COVID-19 crisis is not helping because no fan can be allowed in the stadium. So the biggest income, one of the biggest income inventories of a football club have just minimized. So there's nothing in here right now, and they are losing money, and they are also competing with the FFP. So the future is not so bright in terms of financial field. But of course, sports marketing is not just football or basketball or other amateur branches. There's a phenomenon called esports. And regarding previous year data, the esports is going to generate $1 billion of revenue around the globe. So in Turkey, it's also surprisingly developed. Also, there are, of course, in terms of competition, we are lagging a little bit behind from the international competitors. Our teams are not as good as the, let's say, Swedish teams or American teams, but they are working. In fact, a Turkish team, a Turkish esports, the possibility of a Turkish esports team to win international competition is fairly much better chance than a Turkish football team to win in an international field. At the end of the day, after some point, as if it happens as we forecasted, in the long run, esports will be generating not as much as football, but at least closer to what football generates. So if we, invest as a governmental strategy on esport, I am sure that we are going to get the fruits of what we invest in 5 or 10 years without waiting like 100 years. Because let's say football started in 90s, in the beginning of 90s in Turkey, beginning of 20th century, in fact, 90s by me, 19th. We waited for 100 years for a Turkish club to win an international cup. I don't think it will happen in the esports context. So the last part is the NFTs. NFTs are also for sports marketing to be considered. NFT means non-fungible token. It's a way of selling things under the blockchain movement. These are most likely images that can move or don't move, but you can save it on your computer. These are digital images or digital video clips or digital, paintings or stuff, whatever digital you think of. And they are called NFTs. NFTs are bought and sold in various marketplaces. You can go and buy an NFT of a very famous artist, while you can also buy an NFT of an NBA athlete. For example, we are not doing it in Turkey. No. Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe have signed an agreement with the website called SoRare for their player cards to be sold as NFTs on that platform. But NBA Top Shot is the main driving force right now on the NFT field. Is a very good example of modern day sports marketing. They are converting the highlights of NBA athletes that have played in that night or 2 years back, and he made a good dunk, he made a critical 3-point, and they made a highlight of it. And these highlights have been converted to digital platform and is sold as an NFT. And you need to see the amount of people who are trying to buy the NBA Top Shot cards. So as a Turkish sports marketer, I need to stress out the importance of technological transformation, both on sport in general, how we perceive the sport, and how we sell sport. So I am forecasting a huge technological transformation in the upcoming years, and if we fail to do that, we will be lagging much behind than what we are doing today. So sorry if I bore you. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for being here and hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Sorusu olan varsa arkadaşlar. Thank you. Okay then, if you don't have any questions, thank you, Mehmet, for being here. So, see you. Have a nice evening and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.